The desert stretched on like an endless ocean of gold, dunes shifting restlessly beneath the harsh sun. Nanda trudged through the sands, her steps driven by weary determination. The scarab she now preferred to carry in her mouth. Somehow she felt it was safer there. Its ancient weight was both a blessing and a curse. Her thoughts drifted along through the monotonous journey like a dromedary in a sandstorm. Why couldn't these ancient magical artifacts ever be found in places with air conditioning? Nanda grumbled, squinting against the relentless sun. Or at least somewhere with a few trees for shade. Nanda had only ever seen herself as a cat who enjoyed her independence, chasing the occasional bird and avoiding humans when possible. But now here she was, trekking across the blistering desert, her paws burning in the heat. A less pragmatic creature might have complained, but Nanda wasn't one for wasted effort. Complaining never solved anything. She let out an exasperated sigh as her paws sank into the scorching sand. I should have stayed with that nice old woman who thought I was her lucky cat. Instead, here I am, dragging this cursed beetle across a desert because some giant bird told me it would teach me something. The image of Big Bird, with his cheerful personality and whimsical wisdom, flashed through her mind. At least Big Bird didn't send me on a wild goose chase to face some dark sorcerer. What was I thinking? Nanda shook her head in disbelief. Yeah, right. I could have been curled up on a couch, watching Sesame Street, instead of chasing ancient prophecies and battling that deranged shampoo guy. Guess I really flew too close to the sun this time. She sighed, adjusting her vision to the shimmering horizon. Despite her frustrations, Horus's cryptic words gnawed at her. He'd said the scarab would teach her control, show her the way forward. But so far, all it had taught her was that ancient Egyptian artifacts were a lot heavier than they looked. The sun's oppressive heat beat down, each step making her muscles ache, her paws burning against the ground. She could feel the dampness in her fur from the sweat that gathered on her pads, a rare sensation that reminded her how hard it was to stay cool. Her mind wandered to simpler thoughts. The comfort of shade, a sip of water, maybe even a mouse or two if fate was feeling kind. Right now, though, it felt like luck had abandoned her. Just as her patience began to fray, a flicker of green caught her eye. She blinked, unsure if she was imagining things. It was faint, almost lost in the golden dunes, but unmistakably real. An oasis. Is that a mirage? Or are the gods finally taking pity on me? Nanda wondered. Either way, it couldn't hurt to check. She veered toward the shimmering sight, the promise of shade and water spurring her tired paws forward. As she drew closer, the oasis solidified before her. Palm trees swayed in the breeze, and a pool of crystal-clear water reflected the sky. Nanda didn't let herself believe it until her paws sank into the cool, damp sand at the water's edge. She let out a long, relieved breath and bent down, her tongue eagerly lapping at the refreshing water. Ah, sweet survival, she muttered between gulps, her voice barely more than a rasp. If only there was a bed, a meal, and maybe someone to carry me the rest of the way. The scarab, now resting in the shade beside her, flickered gently in the fading sunlight. Its intricate patterns seemed to hum with quiet energy, the power of the source merging with the desert's rhythm. Any chance you're going to give me a clue, or are you just along for the ride? She asked, more to herself than the inanimate object. No response. Nanda wasn't sure if she felt disappointed or relieved. Magical artifacts, in her experience, were rarely helpful. They had a talent for being cryptic and vague. She stared at the scarab for a moment longer, then rested her head on her paws. The oasis was tranquil, its stillness a welcome reprieve from the harsh winds and unrelenting sun of the desert. She could stay here a while, just long enough to recover. It seemed like a reasonable idea. She'd earned it, surely. But as always, the universe had other plans. Just as her body began to relax and she started to doze, the scarab seemed to give off a quick electric shock, sending a sudden jolt through the air. Nanda's ears perked up, and she lifted her head. Here we go again. The scarab's golden surface began to glow, casting flickering patterns of light onto the ground. Nanda felt the air around her hum with energy, the vibrations growing louder with each passing second. Well, that doesn't seem she muttered, then quickly corrected herself and sat up straight. Suddenly, the ground beneath her paws trembled. The oasis rippled, and her peripheral vision blurred, as if reality itself was being torn apart. Nanda scrambled backward, her fur standing on end. She wasn't sure what was about to happen, but whatever it was, she didn't like it. She'd never get used to this. Should have taken that nap while I had the chance. The scarab's light intensified, enveloping her in a cocoon of golden energy. Before she could react, a powerful force yanked her forward. The world dissolved into a swirling vortex of light and shadows, pulling her deeper into its depths. Great. Another magical joyride. This better not take long. I was just starting to enjoy the oasis. When Nanda opened her eyes again, she found herself suspended in a vast golden void. Time twisted and stretched around her, and the air thrummed with ancient magic. Far-off stars flickered, distant and unblinking, as if she'd been thrown into the very heart of the universe. Okay, I admit, this is kind of impressive, she murmured to herself. Then louder, she added. All right, ancient beetle, what's the point of all this? A light show? In response, the void shimmered. Images began to flicker around her, scenes from the past and future blending together in dizzying arrays. She saw Egypt in its glory, the pyramids towering above, laborers toiling in the heat, erecting monuments to forgotten kings. The images shifted in an instant, showing the fall of these civilizations, their great achievements eroded by time's relentless march. Nanda watched in silence, her mind spinning. These weren't just glimpses of history, they were living threads of possibility, potential futures unraveling in every direction, like a tapestry being woven and unraveled simultaneously. Some futures gleamed with hope and triumph, while others were steeped in tragedy, drenched in the kind of despair that clawed at the soul. And then she saw herself. The first vision was startling in its clarity. She stood tall in a grand temple, the scarab resting in her paws, glowing with ancient power. Around her swirled an aura of divine energy, shimmering like sunlight on water. Facing her was Shempu, but he was no longer the cold, calculated villain. His eyes were wide with fear, his once confident stance faltering. Behind her, Bastet loomed, radiant and fierce, her protective presence unmistakable. Though no sound accompanied the vision, the meaning was clear. This was a moment of reckoning, and for once, Nanda was the one holding all the cards. Well, at least I look intimidating, she muttered to herself, a hint of self-deprecation breaking through her awe. That's new. But the vision shifted abruptly, like a rug yanked from under her. The temple dissolved into shadow, the light snuffed out as though it had never existed. In its place, a darker version of herself emerged. She saw herself as a shadowy figure, eyes cold and lifeless, her fur slicked with a strange, inky darkness. She didn't stand tall here, she loomed, her posture twisted and her presence unnerving. Shempu was no longer cowering. He stood beside her, triumphant, his magic coiling around her like a serpent claiming its prey. Together they radiated malice, a force that could drown the world in chaos. The scarab still glowed, but its light was wrong. It was dim, sickly, pulsating with something unnatural. Nanda's stomach turned, a visceral reaction to the sight. This wasn't just wrong, it was abhorrent, an affront to everything she believed herself to be. She clenched her jaw, trying to shake off the image, but it lingered like the afterimage of a nightmare. Not a fan of that ending, she muttered, though her voice was quieter this time, uncertain. The visions didn't stop there. They shifted again, faster now, flickering between possibilities. She saw herself broken and battered, the scarab lost to the sands of time. She saw Shempu standing victorious on a crumbled pedestal, his laugh echoing across a desolate world. Then she saw something different. She saw herself surrounded by allies, cats, human and divine, their strength bolstering her as they stood together against the encroaching darkness. The tapestry of futures blurred, spinning faster and faster until it became impossible to discern individual threads. And then, just as suddenly, the vision stopped, leaving Nanda standing in stunned silence. The weight of what she had seen pressed heavily on her chest, each image seared into her mind. The scarab in her paws pulsed faintly, as if reminding her that the future was not set, that every step she took mattered. She exhaled slowly, steadying herself. Whatever lay ahead, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't just a spectator in this story. She was the one who would decide how it ended. The lingering echoes of the images began to fade, and she was left alone in the vast, endless void, her heart racing. These weren't just visions, they were choices. Two paths had been laid bare before her. One where she stood strong and defiant, bolstered by a goddess's power, and another where she fell, consumed by shadow, a puppet in the sorcerer's hands. "Well, that's not dramatic at all," she muttered, her voice shaking with an edge of humor as she tried to steady herself. She took a deep breath, gathering her resolve. No pressure, just the fate of time, history, and probably the universe at stake. Before she could dwell on the weight of it all, the void began to shift. A golden glow flared and vanished just as quickly, melting back into the darkness. Moments later, the oasis reappeared in full, its cool scent of water mixing with the rustle of palm fronds, anchoring her in the present. The warmth of the desert wrapped around her like bandages on a mummy, both comforting and suffocating. Nanda blinked, her eyes adjusting as the surreal weight of the visions settled into memory. But something had changed. The scarab's hum still lingered, though not as insistent as before. It was now steady, a quiet presence rather than an intrusion. She stretched her limbs, rolling her shoulders back with a dry chuckle. "Right, no big deal," she muttered, glancing at the scarab. "Just need to stop Shempu, fix the timeline, and hopefully not die trying. Simple enough." The tension in her muscles eased for a moment, and she was about to lie back down when a faint rustling broke the stillness. Nanda's fur bristled. Her ears twitched, honing in on the sound. She turned sharply, eyes narrowing as a shadow shifted near the edge of the oasis. A figure stepped forward, emerging from the gloom, a tall figure cloaked in dark robes, their face hidden beneath a deep hood. Their footsteps were unnervingly quiet, but Nanda's keen senses had already detected the disturbance. She crouched low, muscles coiled, ready to pounce if necessary. "Whoever you are, I'm not in the mood for surprises." The figure stopped a few paces away and raised their hands in a peaceful gesture. "Do not be alarmed, little one," they said, their voice low and steady. "I'm here to help." Nanda wasn't buying it. In her experience, anyone claiming to help usually wanted something. She kept her distance. "Help, huh? Forgive me if I'm skeptical. I've had a long day." The figure lowered their hood, revealing a wise face lined with age and deep-set eyes that shimmered with an otherworldly light. "I am Veruschka. I am a servant of Mahat." Nanda's brow furrowed in confusion. "That's nice for you. Quite the title. I've met a couple of servants of Mahat already. One's name is Safi. Do you know her?" "I've heard of her," Veruschka replied, "though I've never met her. She was here long before I was born. Her portrait still hangs on one of the walls. I've observed your journey, Nanda. The future is in your paws, and so far you are doing well." Nanda twitched her ears. "Last I checked, I'm just a cat trying to survive one disaster after another." Veruschka smiled faintly, the kind of smile that came from deep, ancient wisdom. "You underestimate yourself. The scarab chose you for a reason." Nanda rolled her eyes. "Chosen by a beetle? That's a new one. I thought Bastet had my back in all this. And I have to say, Veruschka doesn't exactly sound Egyptian. Where's that from?" Veruschka chuckled softly. "My name comes from the far north, a land of ice and snow. But names are just labels, Nanda. It's the purpose behind them that matters." "So who am I really supposed to listen to? Bastet? Mahat? The scarab? Or maybe you?" Nanda's voice was laced with sarcasm. Veruschka's expression softened, her eyes reflecting deeper understanding. "Each has played a part in your journey. Your bond with Bastet has prepared you for the challenges ahead." "Sure," Nanda replied, her irritation bubbling to the surface. "But after facing Shempu already, I'm supposed to just dive back in for round 3? What's the plan here? Stop him, save time, and then what? Retire to a cushy oasis with endless fish and milk?" Veruschka's demeanor grew more serious. "Shempu is no ordinary sorcerer. His power is unstable, driven by greed. He seeks to bend time itself, to reshape history to his will. What you've seen, those visions, were just glimpses of what could be." Nanda's tail flicked sharply, her frustration showing despite the weight pressing down on her. "I get it. Shempu's a problem. And apparently, I'm the only one who can fix it. No pressure, right?" "You underestimate yourself, Nanda," Veruschka said gently. Embrace your role. You've already proven stronger than you realize. Trust in that. You might surprise even yourself. Nanda inhaled deeply, her heart racing. Surprising myself doesn't sound all that appealing when it comes to dark magic and time-warping sorcerers. But if that's what it takes to stop him, then I guess I'll have to try. Again. Her fur prickled slightly at the thought of that darker version of herself. The shadows that had closed around her, the cold fear that had gripped her bones. She absolutely did not want that future. Not for herself, not for anyone. But she didn't let Veruschka see the unease that stirred within her. So she slipped on her poker face. "And let me guess," she said. "I'm the only one who can stop him because of some prophecy or divine will or whatever." Veruschka's gaze softened, but her voice remained calm. "No prophecy, Nanda. No grand divine decree. You are the one who can stop him because you possess something Shempu cannot. The ability to walk between worlds. That's why you were chosen, and the decision was unanimous." Nanda tilted her head, her tail flicking lazily. "So it's just me and my so-called talent for being in the wrong place at the right time then? That figures. All right. Let's say I'm on board. How exactly am I supposed to stop some superhuman who can twist time itself? I'm just a cat." Veruschka knelt to her level, her expression calm but earnest. "You may be a cat, Nanda, but you are an extra special cat. The scarab has already begun unlocking your potential. Your next step is to journey to my base, the Temple of Mahat. There you'll find more allies and answers." "Of course, the Temple of Maat. At long last," Nanda muttered, rolling her eyes. "How many more temples, though? Because why wouldn't the answers be at another cryptic temple in the middle of nowhere? Never something simple, like a scroll under a rock." Veruschka's smile was faint but knowing. "A journey of this magnitude is never simple. But I have faith in you." Nanda sighed and glanced at the pulsating scarab, which seemed to be glowing even more. She wasn't sure whether it was encouraging her or mocking her. "Yeah, well, let's hope you're right. Otherwise, I'll have some very stern words for whoever decided to give this thing to me." Veruschka stood, her gaze lingering on Nanda with a trace of admiration. "You're far stronger than you realize. Trust in yourself and in the power you carry." With that, she began to fade into the shadows of the oasis, leaving Nanda alone once again. Nanda stood motionless for a moment, her thoughts spinning. The idea that she had potential wasn't something she was used to hearing, especially not from mystical beings tied to ancient deities. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the sands, Nanda stood tall. The weight of the scarab around her neck no longer felt quite as heavy, though the responsibility it carried still loomed in her mind. "Temple of Maat now, finally, huh?" she said aloud, her tone dry but resolute. "Guess I better get moving before some other magical disaster decides to show up." With one last look at the now quiet oasis, Nanda turned and set off on her journey once more. Her paws sank into the cooling sand as the desert stretched out before her. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with dangers and unknowns. But Nanda felt confident that whatever awaited her at the end of this journey, she would face it on her terms. Under the blanket of stars, Nanda began to move swiftly, the moon casting a silver glow across her sleek body. The night air brought a welcome relief from the heat of the day, filling her with a renewed sense of purpose. Despite the fatigue weighing on her limbs, her mind buzzed with thoughts about the next step in her journey. Allies at the Temple of Mahat. Could be gods. Could be more annoying magical creatures. Either way, I hope they know how to navigate better than that bird. A small, amused smile tugged at Nanda's lips at the thought of Horus and his cryptic, frustrating messages. The god had been helpful in his own way, but Nanda much preferred straightforwardness.